Dragons are great, in theory at least, but by the time you run a few colors of dragons with your players, they all end up kind of feeling the same, or getting beaten way too quickly.
Another dragon? Yeah, but this one's gold.
So if you're a DM looking to use a dragon without feeling predictable or boring, or a player/dragon enjoyer who just wants to learn about dragons, I spent the last week digging through the D&D archives and making brand new 5e stat blocks so that you don't have to. And they're all available for free using the link in the description. By the end of this video, you won't just know about dragons most players have never even heard of. You'll walk away with at least one encounter, plot twist, or villain idea that will make your players lose their minds. To do that, we're going to review 5 dragons that you never knew existed by looking at their appearance, lore and personality, their abilities, ways to work them into your stories, and combat tactics for each dragon so that your players feel like they're facing the instincts of different dragon types every single time. This is all for Dragon Week, a week of YouTube creators putting together daily playlists for a week all about dragons. So big thanks to Ginny D and Pointy Hat for working so hard on putting this together. And now, back to the dragons. So if you want to remain unpredictable, this first dragon is for you. They're slightly unstable, a little ADHD, and constantly giving in to the intrusive thoughts. And no, it's not me. On top of all that, they have a breath weapon of pure light burning all in its path, and it reflects the light from the sun to blind its opponents. Enter the Mercury Dragon. These little balls of chaos are sleek and serpentine in appearance, with long, slim tails, slender heads, and horns pointed straight back from behind their eyes. Their long forms make them incredibly agile and fast when flying. Their scales are metallic, smooth, and silver to the point of being white. Their scales and eyes becoming as brilliant as mirrors as they mature, but how do they act? Well, Mercury by name, mercurial by nature. Good one, right? I used a thesaurus. This means that even though they're metallic in body, they're completely unaligned, volatile, and barely finish one thought before moving on to... Did I turn the oven off before I started this video? Where was I? They actually crave new experiences to the point of needing to try new foods every day, and if a Mercury Dragon is forced to eat the same thing for too long, they actually fall into lethargy and depression. Mercury Dragons will attack unprovoked if bored or puzzled, but those who have had more life experience are more open to talking things out before the situation escalates. Another little quirk is that they do not understand humanoids whatsoever, and so spend a lot of time shifted into human form, living amongst them, in order to better understand them, but they always come off as really odd, eccentric people. But as they get older, they learn to temper this and become better at blending in. So, we've mentioned their human polymorphing abilities, but a real deciding factor of using a Mercury Dragon will be its other key abilities. Let's look. Side note, I based all of our stat blocks on the ancient forms of each dragon, but these can be scaled down should you want to run a younger form with lower level parties. Their breath weapon is a beam of pure light, 90 feet long and 5 feet wide. Everyone in this line has to make a dex save of 21 or take 12d8 fire damage, half on a success. But didn't you also say something about sunlight? Why yes. Yes, I did. Their brilliance ability can be used in overcast, clear, or moonlit skies. By using their reflective wings, they can focus this light into a 90-foot beam, causing the target to become blinded on a failed con save. Alternatively, they can choose to emit a 60-foot cone of bright daylight until the end of the next turn. They can also turn into a liquid metal form, and one of their legendary actions is Mirror Step, teleporting them 60 feet while leaving behind a mirror image lasting until its next turn, potentially fooling its enemies. We'll talk about how these are used in combat to embody the Mercury Dragon in a second, but first we need to write them into your game. For horror flavor, try this. A village has reported that mirrors have been acting strangely. Villagers' reflections don't blink when they're supposed to, or move in sync with their real counterparts. This eventually leads to a villager going missing and being replaced by its reflection in the real world. A Mercury Dragon is experimenting with magic, building a flawless mirror reflection of the village under its control. What is real, and who can the party trust? Is the dragon aggressive, or just bored and curious? What happens if the party's mirror reflections turn hostile? Okay, now that we have the dragon placed, let's talk about what happens if they get into a fight. Mercury Dragons are flighty and not afraid to just peace out as fast as possible if they feel that they're at a disadvantage. They'll also use duck and dive tactics to fly in, blind, attack, and then fly out and hide, using their amazing maneuverability and Quicksilver form to slip away before their next attack. They'll find hiding spaces and then mock and boast to their enemies between attacks, so make sure you have some quips on hand when playing as a Mercury Dragon. But what happens when a dragon can't fly and doesn't shapeshift and doesn't want to be found? Let's go from chaos to colossal, because this next dragon hunts you from below. These sand-dwelling beasts are underground hunters, using superior tracking abilities to stalk and ambush their next meal from right under their feet. Prepare to be tracked by the lesser-known chromatic cousin, the Brown Dragon. And they're terrifying, so I hope you brought your brown pants. Also known as sand or great desert dragons, these wingless wonders are natural-born tunnelers, shown by their spike-covered faces, perfect for pushing away Earth. They've also got two fin-shaped remnants of what could have been wings at one point that run from their head down to their tail. And with their long necks, leathery scales, and small webbed claws, they're able to speed under loose sand very quickly. The Brown Dragon is a hunter through and through. They view most things smaller than them as food. They can speak common, but why would they talk to their food? Only weirdos would do that, right?
Come to Papa.
Right? They're as intelligent as they are ferocious, so we'll be careful about the attacks they use when pursuing their prey, as they don't want to spoil their food. More on that shortly. They're also natural enemies with blue dragons, with their battles being the tales of legend among humans. Curiously though, folks who come from the areas near to these dragons have a strange respect for them, as they see blue dragons as the more evil and vindictive of the two. Brown dragons are just out here trying to eat, man. But what unique abilities do they possess that they can use to attack their prey or enemies exactly? Let's dive in. My 5e stat block for the ancient brown dragon has a few standout abilities, like 60 feet of blind sight and 500 feet of tremor sense to locate its prey. One very unique aspect is the ability to create a sandstorm in a 60 feet radius. Creatures in this area take 1d12 bludgeoning damage at the start of their turns, but they're also blinded and have to succeed on a DC 15 acrobatics check if they want to move more than 5 feet, falling prone on a failed save. Brutal. They can also cast a beam of disintegrate from their eyes and conjure air elementals once per day. And yes, it does have a breath weapon. This one is pure acid in a 120-foot line 10 feet wide. Each creature makes a dex save of 24 or takes 16 d10 acid damage. But it's very particular about how it uses it, and we'll talk about why after we set up a story hook for your game. A desert-themed story that uses the brown dragon intelligence and hunting skills is the Moving Oasis. A once reliably known oasis has changed position 3 times in the same month, and now traveling merchants are going missing after reports of the water seemingly whispering to travelers who passed it. What they don't know is that under the oasis, a brown dragon is using Create Destroy Water combined with their sandstorm to form a trap, consuming the merchants and their mounts before disappearing and moving the oasis once more. But why did I mention the mounts specifically? I'll answer that now as we get into their combat tactics. When it comes to brown dragons, it's all about ambush in order to ensure that they catch their prey. Use their intelligence to set traps like the Moving Oasis. Now, mounts, and particularly horses, are a weakness of the brown dragon. They're considered a delicacy, and so even if the brown dragon is attacked, it will not use its disintegrate or its acid breath if the attacker is mounted on a horse. Instead, they'll look to dismount the player character before eating the horse, and then turning their attention back to the party in order to either eat them or destroy them. The ancient brown dragon has a legendary action to burrow down, travel, and then erupt into a space, causing all creatures to make a dex save or take 66 bludgeoning damage and fall prone. This would be perfectly timed before their next turn in order to make sure that the party is most vulnerable on their back before using their actual turn to bite. Use the sandstorm in the same way, and remember to tunnel underground for movement. If anyone within 500 feet moves above ground, their tremor sense would pick it up and set them up for another ambush-style attack. So far we've seen power and speed, but this next dragon? It's not here to hunt. It's here to gather and never let go. This dragon exists between 2 planes and no longer has a physical body. It's driven by so much greed that it simply can't let go of their collection, even in the face of death. This is the Hoarder Dragon. Initially appearing as nothing more than a large, unguarded treasure hoard, if anything is touched, it comes to life. Taking the form of a dragon body, the treasure itself becomes possessed by the dragon, usually made of gold coins, gemstones, swords, and magic items. They would often use the gems for their eyes the same color as their scales once were. That's right, I said once were. Hoarder dragons are undead dragons who, in life, were so obsessed by greed that they couldn't bear to leave their hoard behind, even after death. They have an incorporeal body like a ghost after damning themselves to haunt their precious treasure for the rest of time. In the Forgotten Realms, it was said that dragons who worship Task, the draconic god of acquisition, became Hoarder dragons after death as a reward for their service. And what do they get for this honor? I'm glad you asked. The Hoarder Dragon stat block is actually more of a template. This template can be applied to any dragon stat block to make them a Hoarder Dragon. They retain all of their draconic abilities and attacks with a few additions. As a free action, it can possess its horde, animating it into its draconic form. While possessing the horde, it can activate any magic item in its horde as a free action without attunement once per round. When not possessing the horde, it has an incorporeal form and can move to the ethereal plane. While there, it can move freely but cannot affect the material plane. Its bite attack upgrades to Avaricious Bite, which when it hits reduces 1d4 from the target's max HP, and the dragon gains 5 temporary HP for every point drained. That's right, even greedy for your HP. The breath weapon remains the same as the original dragons, but half of the damage becomes bludgeoning as gold coins hurtle towards its target. But with such rich abilities, let's make sure that the Hoarder Dragon steals the show and pays off in your stories. Okay, I'll stop. For now. A nobleman inherits a gold ring from his father bearing a dragon insignia. He becomes increasingly greedier the longer that he wears it, randomly snaps at strangers demanding his gold, and waking up in the morning exhausted and covered in jewelry and items of value that he doesn't recognize that are now fused to his body. The ring cannot be removed, and when attempting to remove it causes levels of pain that he didn't even know existed. Little do they know, the ring is actually an anchor for the Hoarder Dragon's soul. He's slowly using the nobleman to gather his hoard to form his treasure body, consuming him in the process. Can you players figure it out in time? Can they stop the formation of the Hoarder Dragon? Or will they let it form in order to destroy its soul and save the noble? But if they find themselves facing the Hoarder down, you'll need to know how to get into its greed-crazed mind, so let's look at the tactics. Greed and paranoia is the name of the game here. Hoarder Dragons will lie in wait in the ethereal plane, watching adventurers get closer to their horde before quickly ambushing them by animating their horde and attacking in vengeful spite. The way you want to play this one is by utilizing wands, spell scrolls, and other magic items within the horde as the free action every round, following up with the coin breath weapon. Protect and covet every piece of the horde with reckless abandon, while quickly leaving the possession of the horde if you need to retreat before ambushing once more. Okay, obsessed dragons are one thing, but what if a dragon doesn't want treasure or glory or even control? What if it just wants everything and everyone to rot? Our next dragon hails from the infinite layers of the abyss, driven to infect chaos and insanity on its victims. Make way for the abyssal Chol Dragon. I looked for a really long time to confirm how to pronounce this, and I couldn't find anything anywhere. So if you know, let me know. Chol dragons do not look like any other dragon. Beings of evil planar chaos, they're covered in glowing runes and a number of tentacles which differed from one to the next. The tentacles themselves also changed, being covered in different combinations of needle-like spikes and ridges or being completely smooth. Stop it. Their faces just read as hate and spite, with rows of spiked teeth in its mouth and eyes protruding from either side of its skull and nostrils on top. Chol dragons are pure chaos. They will attack anything and anyone with the same reckless aggression no matter who it is, and they will fight to the death with no care in the world. Native to the 518th layer of the abyss, these things hold their own against demons on their home field all day, every day. Chol dragons don't speak at all, like they don't make any kind of vocal sound, which adds to the mystery and lack of definitive information that we have, because we can't exactly ask them. Its breath is said to poison those who inhale it, simultaneously driving them completely insane. But the differing number of tentacles also alters their abilities, giving us 4 kinds of Chol dragon. 4, 7, 9, and 13 tentacled versions of this dragon exist, and no one knows what's significant about these numbers. In-game or out of game, literally the designer has never stated. But what we do know is their abilities, so let's check these out. The runes I mentioned that exist on the dragon's hide glow softly with chaotic power to impose disadvantage on spellcasters' concentration checks when they're within 30 feet of the dragon. Its number of tentacles are randomized with a d4, and it can only control 2. The other 2 just lash out randomly at those around it. They have a reach of 40 feet, and every round 2 tentacles make targeted melee attacks, while another 2 just randomly attack other things around it. It has innate spellcasting and a breath weapon of madness vapors. This is a 90-foot cone of corrosive vapor, causing each creature in its wake to make a DC 24 con save or take 12d12 psychic damage and become confused, just like the confusion spell. But if there's so little known about them, what can we do to actually get them into our campaigns? I got you. A monastery has locked its doors and abandoned hope. How every great story starts. Those who venture nearby see glowing runes floating in the air and rearranging themselves. Not long after the first sighting, several monks were found wandering wandering aimlessly, speaking in numbers backwards and bleeding from the eyes. A Chol Dragon is opening a rift inside the monastery from the abyss, spreading madness throughout and spilling into the material plane. Can the party figure out how to stop the dragon before it breaks all the way through the rift, face it down once it arrives, or just go insane while trying? But if they don't manage to prevent its arrival, you'll need to know how to portray the Chol Dragon in combat, so chaos. Plain, simple chaos. Attack anything and everything within range with the full force of its abilities, no matter who it's facing, until someone is down. Either the target or the dragon. Either way, the Chol Dragon would be happy with the outcome. If that one felt like the end of the world, this next dragon might be the one deciding whether your world deserves to end. I wanted to go out on a high, so what could be higher than an interplanar draconic deity dragon in great worm form? And no, it's not Bahamut. This is the Concordant Dragon. Their appearance differs depending on who you ask. In Dragon Magazine, issue 321, where they're given some stats, Concordant Dragons have a bulky appearance with crude, blocky features, lead-colored scales, and a faint green glow to their hide. But in Forgotten Realms, the one Concordant Dragon known appears as unfathomably large, with scales of blue, gold, brass, or red, edged with silver and dark purple. Confused yet? You should be, but let's unpack this. So, Dragon Magazine just lists them as guardians of dragonkind who watch from afar on the Concordant plane. However, the Forgotten Realms gets murky at best. The only known Concordant Dragon is Io, aka Asgarath, aka the World Shaper, aka the Concordant Dragon, aka the Great Eternal Wheel, aka Swallower of Shades, aka the Ninefold Dragon, aka Creator Dragonkind, aka the Lord of Gods! Yeah, I know. He's described as either a god or primordial force that either tried to destroy the world or created the whole thing. Either way, he's old, and the god of all dragonkind, and the ultimate force of true neutral alignment. One story tells of him being torn in two by another primordial, and the two halves formed Bahamut and Tiamat, both lawful good and chaotic evil being two sides of true neutral. Other stories say that he fathered the dragon twins, and then went on to create the rest of dragonkind as we know it. Some lore says that Asgarath has never manifested in front of his worshippers, but can, choosing to appear as any breed of dragon that he sees fit. His personality as true neutral transcends alignment, embodying the greatest virtues and worst vices simultaneously. He watches over the dragonkind, but doesn't interfere unless there is an event that could threaten the existence of dragons. He literally only cares about dragons and their continued lineage. So how did I stat this out, I hear you ask? So, wanting to pay homage to the stats laid out in Dragon Magazine, I borrowed some of these, but I really like the idea of mixing this with the great deity Forgotten Realms version. In essence, this stat block is the aspect of Asgarath, using the aspect of Bahamut and Tiamat mythic stat block ideas from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. His breath weapon is a 300-foot line, 10-foot wide beam made of antithetical energy. Yeah, you heard me. This means that any creature caught and failing its DC 25 con save takes damage based on its alignment. One step from true neutral causes 16 d10 force damage, but 2 steps takes 24 d10, and true neutral? Zero. Nada. Niet. Nothing. He can also summon Rilmani to his aid once a day. These are true neutral beings in charge of maintaining the balance between good, evil, law, and chaos from the Concordant plane. One nifty legendary action of his is Balance Shift, which on a failed DC 25 charisma save, a creature has its alignment shift 1 step towards neutrality, potentially changing the course of action for that creature. Also, if this misaligns a divine caster from their deity, they suffer disadvantage on concentration checks as they fight to maintain their connection. The kicker? When, if he's reduced to 0 hit points, he enters a mythic state. He regains 400 HP, all legendary resistances, recharges his breath weapon, and removes all conditions affecting him. And that's not all. For the next 3 rounds, all spells cast to affect Asgarath by a creature 1 step from neutral only have a 50% chance of success on a D100 roll, and creatures 2 steps away from neutral only have a 25% chance of success while they still spend that spell slot. All magical travel redirects to the Concordant plane, and he gains mythic actions, which are extra legendary actions. I'll let you read up on those. But we'll talk about how this dragon and or deity uses all of these abilities right after we write this big boy into our game. A king in a chromatic dragon-plagued land has been searching for a wish scroll for years. Upon finally obtaining it, he spends the wish to to erase chromatic dragons from the land. This annihilation of his children, coupled with the imbalance of good and evil now caused by the king, brings a manifestation of Asgarath, here to restore balance by shifting all good-aligned people of the kingdom to evil, leaving it to be overrun by thieves and murderers as the king watches his world eat itself from the inside out. You can have the players come in before the king makes the wish, or maybe they're the ones that deliver the scroll. They watch the wish happen, and then they have to fight their way through the streets of the potentially once good and innocent citizens to make it to Asgarath. At this point, do they plead for mercy, offer something else of equal balance to save the kingdom, or attack first in hopes of finding a way to reverse everything? So, your players chose the latter, and are now facing Asgarath. What does he do? It's all in balance. He's cold and unwavering in tone and attitude. He would not roar or act in anger. Think about reactions to every action. If healing spells are cast, he would counter that by targeting the healed creature with damage. If a character causes significant damage, come at that character threefold, all in the need of balance. He would also quickly assess the attacker's alignment, using Dispel magic to eliminate spells and detect thoughts to understand intentions, while simultaneously asking questions about their intention telepathically. Once he enters his mythic form, make use of the Gravity of Neutrality mythic action to pull the party towards him before following up with his multi-attack. But remember, he is not going to be vengeful and will only kill if death is required for balance. He's neutral Thanos. Stat blocks are linked in the description below, but how many of these had you heard of, and which is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. But if this has got you thinking about what other new things there are to learn about dragons, you should watch the rest of today's Dragon Week playlist, linked in the description.